Hello and happy Pride Month, a month-long celebration where we remember the systemic oppression that gay people have faced while also acknowledging and encouraging their acceptance and inclusion within modern society. Unfortunately, Pride Month also brings out the worst in some people. One example is today's video, which focuses on a content creator who goes by the name DeLay's, who I've talked about on this channel before regarding his ridiculous take on GR Robot, where he claims that actual pedophiles was using the character as some sort of a dog whistle without realizing that he fell for a meme.
Breaking news that all parents need to know. Pedophiles are using this profile picture character to identify each other on social media.
To stay on track, in today's video, we'll be discussing a TikTok that he recently made that I unfortunately came across. In it, he tries to condemn the beloved children's show Sesame Street simply for tweeting support for Pride Month. It's a very short TikTok, about 1 minute long, but it's more than enough to show what I believe is JD's homophobia. For some background on JD, I actually used to follow him when he primarily posted content about what life was like in prison, sharing stories, discussing prison culture that continued until around last election cycle when he took a more political approach. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. I wasn't surprised when he started expressing some more conservative leaning ideals. What did bother me is how he presented himself as an independent while consistently spreading right-wing talking points and hiding behind the both sides are bad angle. Keep in mind, I'm also an independent, however, I obviously lean left on the political spectrum. The difference is that I don't weaponize my independent status to avoid criticisms of the side I tend to agree with. If I support a position commonly associated with the left, I'll defend it openly rather than pretending I'm completely neutral. With JD, it often feels like he uses his independent label as a shield while overwhelmingly pushing conservative narratives, allowing him to dismiss criticisms by claiming he's not actually on either side. So with all that out the way, let's get into the TikTok itself.
So it's the first day of Pride Month and we're already starting with the craziness. Sesame Street posted from their official account, "Happy Pride Month from Sesame Street. Join us in celebrating and uplifting the LGBTQIA+ members of our community." Now, what would be wrong with that?
If anyone is loosely aware what Sesame Street is as a brand, you should know they have a deep, long history of being rooted in progressive social values such as diversity, inclusion, racial equity, and empathy into its foundational curriculum. For the hell, the inception of Sesame Street was based around protests of the Vietnam War and the Civil Rights Movement, with the following explanation being that they wanted to explain the world to children, but their bigger goal was to reach the inner city children of color who would not gain the same educational opportunities as white children in the suburbs were getting. So, being more in line with left-leaning politics, particularly on issues such as cultural acceptance and normalization of marginalized groups like black people and gay people, this tweet seems completely on brand for Sesame Street. Honestly, this harmless tweet shouldn't surprise anyone who knows anything about the show's values and history. And to touch on Sesame Street's stance regarding gay people, this isn't even the first time they've made their position clear. This tweet is simply another example of a long-standing pattern of promoting acceptance, inclusion, and respect for different kinds of people. The idea that Sesame Street would support the existence and acceptance of gay people within entertainment and society is nothing new, nor should it be controversial to anyone familiar with the show and its message. And to continue the topic of Sesame Street acknowledgement and support of gay people, the show introduces its first gay couple back around 2021, around 5 years ago. Once again, this tweet shouldn't be surprising in the slightest. If anything, it's entirely consistent with the values and messaging the show has promoted over their many years on air. And one last note, while it's never been officially confirmed, I personally believe that Bert and Ernie are a gay couple. Growing up, I simply assumed the two were related. Looking back on it now, we're talking about two grown men who are best friends, living together as roommates, and even sleep in the same room. Yeah, I'm standing by my conclusion. These niggas are gay.
Sesame Street is primarily geared towards children between the ages of 2 and 5. Let me say it again, 2 and 5. This show is specifically designed to support early childhood development, focusing on kindergarten and preschool readiness skills like the alphabet, counting, shapes, and emotional regulation.
Yeah, sure. Sesame Street has always focused on priorities that help with early childhood development. It remains an educational show for kids who watch it. But what does any of that have to do with the tweet we're talking about? Like you said, the show's target age range is roughly around 2 to 5 years old. No no 2 or 5-year-old is going to be scrolling through Twitter and seeing the tweet you're referencing. So far, this point seems completely irrelevant to the overall discussion. Maybe he'll explain the connection later, but at the moment, I don't see how bringing up Sesame Street's educational goals has to do with anything with a social media post supporting Pride Month.
I don't care what type of sexuality you're trying to gear 2 to 5-year-old children to. That is grooming.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
JD clearly doesn't know what grooming actually means. Grooming is a form of manipulation in which someone gradually influences another person for a specific purpose, whether that purpose is good or bad. However, most people associate the term grooming with a negative connotation, particularly when discussing about sexual abuse or predatory behavior involving minors. Because of that association, being called a groomer carries a strong emotional stigma and often implies predatory intent. If you're looking at the broader definition of the word, many people engage in all forms of grooming or social conditioning through everyday life. Parents teach their kids values and behaviors, teachers shape their students' habits and expectations, mentors prepare people for their future, and organizations train members to follow a certain standard. The key distinction is the intent behind the influence and whether it's ethical or harmful. So when JD throws around the term grooming, it's important to be clear about what he actually means, because simply influencing or teaching someone isn't the same thing as the predatory behavior that most people think when they hear the word grooming. And sorry, not sorry, simply saying that you accept or even acknowledge gay people in front of a child is not pushing sexuality onto them. By that logic, straight parents who display affection in front of their children, such as holding hands, kissing, or even saying I love you, will also be considered grooming by JD's standards. The problem with the argument is that it treats the mere acknowledgement of a relationship as inherently sexual when it only involves gay people, while treating the exact same behavior as normal if it involves straight people. If anything, it has been long understood that parents who openly display a healthy, age-appropriate affection towards one another can provide a positive example of what a healthy relationship looks like. This gives a child a good reference point as they grow and develop their own understanding of relationships. So, if seeing a straight couple hold hands, hug, or express any sort of love isn't considered grooming, then merely acknowledging that gay people exist or deserve acceptance shouldn't be considered grooming either. The standards should be applied consistently regardless of sexual orientation of the people involved. Keep in mind, the opinion within this circumstance is that we should not hate people who identify with a different sexuality, because we should accept other people regardless of our differences. And please don't take that statement in bad faith.
No child at that age should be subjected to any adults, corporations, or entities trying to form their opinions on sexuality.
It's actually quite common for major corporations to instill some level of morality, teaching in kids shows or entertainment, like it's okay to be who you are or always do the right thing. It begs the question, would JD be against this tweet if it was posted during Black History Month and it was a message showing support for the Black community with the argument that kids should not be subjected to the concept of racial differences and oppression? Remember, a gay person and the concept of homosexuality are not threats to the livelihood or childhood of any children. There's a lot of people who are raised by gay parents, had gay close friends, or had gay authoritative figures with no significant long-term negative impact on their lives. I actually looked into some studies, particularly around the development of children being raised by an openly gay couple, with the overall consensus being that the simple acknowledgement and acceptance doesn't pose any threat to the children involved. I'll leave them down below if any one of y'all are curious.
And that sentiment is absolutely reflected in the comments. People are sick of this shit, and they want you weirdos to leave our fucking kids alone. Do you think it's okay to start grooming kids when they're in between the ages of 2 and 5 towards a sexual identity? Let me know down in the comments.
JD's reaction to a harmless tweet was nothing but a overreaction while spreading some dumbass accusations. He may claim not to hate gay people or not care about what two consenting adults do in their privacy, but simply pushing the talking point that people who are gay need to hide their sexuality from children simply pushes more alienation towards the LGBT community, because what they want is to simply coexist within our society with no harm done to them. And part of that coexisting and normalization is having kids understand that people are different, and depending on what those differences is requires acceptance, such as what a person is romantically interested in, as for their race, gender, religion, and many other social factors that have historically been dividing us as people. With that being said, happy Pride Month and Men's Mental Health Month, because both of these months are of equal importance and they can coexist. Next week we'll be back with simple reviews, since I've been pretty happy with the current season 9 of Rick and Morty, with both episode 1 and episode 2 getting their own reviews. So until next time, I'm your host Taken, and we do a little reviewing around here. Peace out.